What up, everybody? Welcome back to Turn Bar Time. I'm Turn.
I'm the Bark.
We are going to be here a long, long time because this is season 7, episode 11. 7-Eleven? Yeah. Oh man, Bark school year is winding down. I'm so excited. It's just been a lot of fun. Uh, we got what Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Did I do that right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 5 days left for us. Okay, look, you can be bitter.
We're going all the way to next Friday.
Yeah. So you're good. You can handle it. You got 7 days left. Yep. Yep.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna be all right.
Yep. All together. One felt swoop. Oh man. Oh, we had a good we're doing a lot of fun stuff right at the end of the year. I mean, and the cool part is like the last 3 days are fun in the sun, which is our version of field day, promotion and then the last day of school. Although I did do a power move today. And I think that you should use this if you haven't already. I had multiple kids ask me today because we passed out yearbooks yesterday. They're like, Turner, will you sign me a yearbook? And I said no. And they were like, what? And I was like, I don't sign yearbooks until next week. And they're like, wow, that's aura. And I was like, yeah, I don't sign yearbooks until school's over. And they're like, but we're not doing it. I was like, yeah, we're doing stuff still. They may not be as in depth or as powerful, but we're still doing stuff. So
End of the year is always that weird thing where I've had the conversation a couple times, like, I don't make stray cats. I will collect stray cats. Random kids show up in my room from somewhere else. I'm like, where are you supposed to be? And they're like, here. And I'm like, why are you here? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, sit down. I'll leave him.
yeah.
But all of my kids, it's like, you're in my room. You're not going to the gym to shoot hoops. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna make. We're not making problems for other teachers.
Nope. Nope.
Sit
Nope.
your
Nope.
booty in the chair and let's go.
I love it. Oh man, that's a good one. Oh, today's topic. Pretty
Today's
interesting.
topic
Give that a
comes
shot.
to us from Quincy's own Superman,
Yes.
Cesar Cuevas,
Cuevas.
asked us if we would talk about Hanford. So here we go. We're going to talk about Hanford.
Yep. For
So
those who don't know what Hanford is, we'll start with the basics. So Hanford is a town that is in between Quincy, where we both met and I still live, and what we call the Tri-Cities of Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland. When you drive by it, there's literally nothing around. It is very open, barren, sage steppe kind of geography. It is near the Columbia River as it winds and bends its way towards the what will become the Washington-Oregon border. Uh, yeah,
I think it kind of jogs. Yeah. So what was happening, and the reason that there's nobody lives in Hanford anymore. There is a high school in Richland called Hanford High School,
yep,
but it's in Richland, which is kind of confusing. Hanford rises to prominence because it's the site of at the beginning, one nuclear reactor to turn uranium into weapons grade plutonium. Eventually, there'll be 9 reactors there. I was not aware of that.
I didn't know there's not either.
Yeah, they just apparently, after the first one was a success, they just kept adding them. But
Yeah.
it's part of the Manhattan Project, and so they're looking for, during World War II, they had 8 requirements. So the first requirement was access to clean water that could produce up to 25 gallons per minute, which is the proximity to the Columbia River.
Correct.
The second thing that they needed was a large amount of electricity, which,
Grand
thanks
Coulee Dam.
to Grand Coulee, And there's apparently a power line that runs from Grand Coulee to Bonneville that
Yep.
runs right through the area.
Yep.
Third was space for hazardous materials manufacturing, like a big open space where they could put something that made hazardous material.
And the number was it had to be 12 by 16 miles
Yeah.
for that area.
And then 8 miles for labs.
Yep.
An employee village that was 10 miles upwind, which will be important later.
Yep.
Number six, no towns over 1,000 people within 20 miles,
Yep.
which is why they convinced some of them to move to Tri-Cities.
Yep.
Seven, no main highway, railroad, or employee village, again, within 10 miles.
Yep.
And the ground had to be solid enough that it could bear heavy loads, but they don't define heavy loads.
No.
So essentially, they wanted somewhere out in the middle of nowhere with a lot of electricity and a lot of water.
Which, when you think about it, like in that time period, there are very few places that probably match what they are looking for.
Yeah, when they came out and they scouted, they said that nowhere else in the country checked the boxes as well as the Hanford area. The Hanford nuclear site, as it is today, is going to end up being 586 square miles, which is roughly half the size of Rhode Island. So,
All within one county.
yes, it's really kind of crazy. And there's a, if you drive from Quincy to Tri-Cities
You'll pass
and
it.
stay on the east bank of the Columbia
Mhm.
for the majority of the road, you can drive right by, like, I guess what's the main gate, but there's nothing near the main gate.
Yeah, you can't see anything. So you just are driving, and to give context, you're driving along, and so you basically are going down to Vantage, and you're not crossing the bridge. You're going continuing south, and you're going through like Mattawa, and then you go through their roundabout, and you keep just going. You pass a couple of dams, and then you come around the corner, and eventually you come up and you see this one bridge that crosses the Columbia, and you go across that bridge, and there's like this beautiful rest area with a park and everything like that. And then you keep driving, and all of a sudden on your left-hand side, you just start seeing barbed wire and like fences, and then you see this big opening with a gate that says United States government, proper clearance to enter. Uh, and so it's one of those where you're like, huh, that's kind of weird.
Wonder what's over there.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they build, and to put it in perspective, the city of Richland before 1945, according to the national, what was it, National Parks, I think Association is where I got it,
Mhm.
National Park Service. They say that the population of Richland in like the 1920s was 250 people. 250 people.
Yeah.
Uh, and by 1945, there's 15,000 people there.
Yeah.
So they start building the site in 1943. The first reactor, the reactor that is now a national park, I think, is
Mhm.
Reactor B, which they start building in August of 1943. It's done in just over a year. Finished it in September, and it will yield its first batch of plutonium in November of 44. And I mean, I guess that's where a lot of people think that it's famous, is that we know that it produces the plutonium that goes in the Fat Man bomb that is dropped on Nagasaki.
Yep. Yep.
And then I did more research and learned a
Oh.
lot more.
Okay.
I talked about there's 9 nuclear reactors, right?
Yeah.
Only one of them at some point splits, and like, who was it? It was Kennedy. Kennedy was president because he dedicated the reactor. It was in reactor, provided electricity, but
Okay.
that was like on the side. It had like a side gig providing electricity, and that's because they had created like a closed loop system or a partially closed loop system where they
Hmm.
were recycling the water, but the the early reactors were single cycle reactors, which means that you're taking water from the Columbia, running it through the reactor, putting it in a pond, and then putting it back in the river. So that's not reassuring enough as it is yet. But do you realize that 2/3 of all of the weapons grade plutonium in the American arsenal was produced in Hanford?
Isn't that wild?
I didn't realize it was that much.
Like, well, because I was thinking, I remember my first time I heard about Hanford, like really heard about it, was in ninth grade. We had to do a giant research project, and it had to be social studies based, but it was also in English, and we did like this, I mean, just massive. And I did the Manhattan Project, and I was allowed to do it. And so I remember going through the history of it and looking at the places that they picked. And of course, I was like, Washington was fascinating, but it was like, I think there was Oak Ridge, Tennessee, there was Hanford, there's Los Alamos, and then
Savannah River.
that one I don't, that not off the top of my head, but you're probably right. Um, but it was just like one of those where it was like, huh, it was like, so in my mind, it was like Oak Ridge was doing uranium and Hanford was doing plutonium. And so like when I did the whole thing, I was like, that was the only place in the United States we were making plutonium or purifying it to that extent. And so yeah, that's just kind of wild to think about.
Yeah. Well, if they had put it on the TVA power grid, it would have tapped the TVA power grid. So that's why I didn't go down there in Tennessee.
Right.
Uh, there is an absolute treasure trove of the B reactor is a national park. You can go visit and tour. Um, and there's a ton of stuff, ton of YouTube videos on there they have retired reactor engineers that give
Oh,
presentations.
that's
So
cool.
it's pretty cool. And like when COVID first hit and the Chernobyl miniseries came out, like
Yeah.
I kind of feel like there's times where I feel like I have a pretty good handle on how nuclear reactors work, and then like I watch these guys talk, and I'm like, yeah, I'm lost again. Um, Essentially, what they do is they take uranium and then you bombard it with neutrons.
Yeah,
I think
because
you can
uranium.
slow the neutrons down or something.
So I'm trying to remember. This is where I'm sorry, Mr. Reese, and my periodic table of elements is not right off the top of my head. Um, because when you do it, yeah, you bombard it with neutrons because you need it to go up to a certain level. Um, so plutonium is what is it? It's plutonium, it's like 238 or something like that. And I think uranium. So plutonium is 78 on the periodic table. Uranium is, well, Turner, where is uranium? You are. Keep talking, Barker. I might need you to vamp here for a little bit. Oh, uranium's
Essentially,
92. So
yeah.
like
So
you're pulling
you,
them away. So like you're pulling them back because you wanted to like so if I remember, this is ninth grade, so this is a long time ago. But basically, you have like there are isotopes of uranium that work for that are pure enough to use to detonate, right? You can't just use like uranium out of the ground. You have to like be able to do it. And so I thought that what they did was they like pummeled it. They tried to knock out like neutrons because you had to keep it stable.
yeah,
Um,
they were saying the guy that I was watching presentation from the guys at the B
mhm.
reactor, and they were saying that all of the materials that were used at Hanford prior to going into the reactor, you could handle safely by hand. And like there's pictures of them like taking stuff out of like a cardboard box that just has like the nuclear symbol on it.
Oh,
And this dude's just like lifting stuff out of a cardboard box.
that's wild.
But you essentially get it has to go from uranium to an isotope of plutonium.
Mhm.
Then you have to let it the half-life cook because it also creates something else that's not plutonium, but it sounds like plutonium. But I can't. But anyway,
Okay.
like
So they have a quick, sorry, just a quick thing. The thing that they have, um, so it says that sorry, I'm gonna get this. It was first identified, so the initial operation was halted by a problem identified as neutron absorption in the fission process of xenon 135, first identified by it looks like Xiong Wu, um, that was shared with Fermi. It was overcome by increasing the amount of uranium charge. The reactor produced plutonium-239 by irradiating uranium-238 with neutrons generated by the nuclear reaction.
yeah, and then you get a chain reaction where like it creates a chain reaction where it just keeps kicking more neutrons and turning more uranium into plutonium. But there's talked about because you have to watch out for the xenon. This goes back to the Chernobyl stuff
Mhm.
because if there's a buildup of the xenon, as they say in Russia, with all of the British actors, um, it it'll kill the reactor because it slows down or absorbs the neutrons.
Mhm.
And so the neutrons aren't bouncing and cracking into new stuff. They die. And so it
Yeah,
poisons the reactor because that was one of the reasons. That was one of the things they were trying to avoid at Chernobyl was they were afraid they were going to poison the reactor with the buildup of xenon.
gotcha.
But anyway, so like they do this and you're supposed to let it sit. The normal, where is it? Yeah, you normally let it sit for 83 to 100 days for the half-life to burn off, and leave behind the plutonium that you need, as
Mhm.
well as some other fissile. Instead of where they just like lose me because they're like, oh, there's other fissile materials. So you just like other radioactive like kind of stuffs, and it's there. Um, and so like this all happens. It's not like the super hush hush. Like people
Right.
are out
It's
there
all,
working. But I think at one point they said the maximum number of like federal workers they had out there was like 45,000 people,
yeah. And
like
nobody
just
knows what's going on. I
cracking
mean,
on.
sorry, rephrase. Their higher ups know what's going on, but like the average worker, and again, this could be Oak Ridge instead of Hanford, but one of the crazy ones was that you read a story and it was like a person and their only job was to turn this valve when a needle got to a certain point. So like when a needle gets here, you turn the valve this way. When the needle gets back to here, you turn the valve this way. And that's all they did all day, not knowing what they were actually doing.
Yeah. Um, and so like something else that it creates. There's another, I can't find it, but it creates another isotope that you let that isotope burn off and then leave behind the plutonium. But
Oh,
anyways, the plutonium is, I guess, more reactive because Little Boy that was dropped on Hiroshima had uranium in it.
correct.
And so
Uranium, they
plutonium
got
is more
235.
more reactive than uranium.
Mhm.
Um, and so like everybody kind of gets to that point in World War II where it's like we made it, it's good, it's great, goodbye. But what we don't realize is throughout the Cold War, like these dudes are just cooking.
Yep, just
Like
going.
it's kind of like nuclear meth labs in the middle of nowhere, like for lack of a better term.
Yep.
It's like the US government just built some like just more and more reactors so they could start making, and then there's other facilities, lab facilities to like conduct the chemical process to take the plutonium like out of the solution once it comes out of the reactor. And for a little bit, they were transporting kind of like this like slurry of nuclear waste like to New Mexico. And then after a while, they're like, well, that's kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Why don't we just, and they built a facility at Hanford to do it.
Yep.
So one of the first and most obvious impacts of this is that this is why Tri-Cities is the like triplet sisters that it is today.
Yeah.
Is that these massive amount of jobs came up from government funding for this project. And I believe it was built by, oh man, built by, it's a big company and I can't think of
Is
what
it
the name.
GE?
No, it starts with a D, I think. Um, it's an older construction company. Because it's one of the people that when they try and sue, that's who they sue. They sue the contractors.
DuPont.
DuPont. There we go. Thank you.
Your guys.
Um, and so kind of the follow-up to this that goes kind of untalked about or not super recognized in the Pacific Northwest, it's well established in New Mexico and Arizona around Los Alamos, is the idea of downwinders. So we talked about they built the work village to the north. And I think about this like looking at how the hydroelectric dams are built. They're
Hmm.
generally those little villages, like the random like half dozen houses that are right next to the dam, and there's no gas station, there's nothing else. But the idea is that the people who work at the dam live in those little houses right next to the dam. So if there's a dam problem, they can be there
Real
right.
damn quick.
Yeah. Um, People in Eastern Washington have been trying to get recognized as downwinders, which means that you've been exposed to essentially, for lack of a better term, nuclear fallout
Yeah.
or radiation coming from right the air. And in New Mexico and Arizona, it's from the testing of the bomb testing, where they knew that it created
Hmm.
radiation, put it in the air, and is impacting these people. Um, but for a long time, and like they're still not recognized. So in 1990, there was the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act that was passed by Congress
Hmm.
that provided exposure for people who are downwinders, people who worked on site. Um, but it doesn't, it only recognizes people from certain areas, and the Hanford area is not a recognized zone.
Yeah.
And for apparently, I looked at a lot of writing that came out of some books. A lot of it revolved around a guy named Tom Bailey, who is from kind of the Eltopia Mesa area, which is kind of in between Connell and like 395,
Hmm.
I think is the right highway. Um, and for a long time, he'd been trying to say there's apparently a stretch, a 2 mile stretch of road in Eltopia that they call the Death Mile, where people have blood disorders, blood and thyroid cancer at like highly elevated rates.
Right.
His dad and four uncles have died of cancer. He's sterile. He has family members that like their children have been born and their children are sterile.
Huh.
And during like the 60s and the 70s, at the height of the Cold War, the government was like, everything's normal. Like this is completely within
Yeah.
acceptable parameters. And through like Freedom of Information Act requests, they found that in December of 1949, the government actually vented exhaust during what they call the Green Run,
Yep.
where they let the uranium sit for 16 days instead of, so like for a quarter of the minimum time that they normally let it burn off isotopes. And it reduces the amount of xenon and iodine that gets released into the atmosphere. And so some of the sources made it sound like the government was trying to study the impact of it. And that was sometimes gets associated with the idea of like dirty bombs.
Right.
Um, and so they released this premature radiation into the air. And like it shows pretty much going like all the way down to like Bend to
Yeah.
like Spokane.
Yeah.
It's wild. And what they think is that in the surrounding area is that a lot of this iodine landed on the grass, was
Yep.
eaten by the cows,
Cows.
and then the cows have it, and then they produce milk, and then the kids drink it. And kids, iodine likes to go to your thyroid. And so a lot of these kids, when they were drinking milk in the local area, um, and I think they actually said that there's a higher cancer rate among people who actually were getting their produce and milk from their
Local.
local, like from their own farm, as opposed to people who are going to the supermarket.
Right.
Um, and so they're ingesting it, and then it was sitting in there. I didn't chase this all the way down because I know that in the docudrama of Chernobyl, as soon as they realize that there's been a nuclear accident and then there's radiation coming from somewhere, they take iodine tablets. And I think the purpose of that is that you put an isotope of iodine in your body that's not harmful,
Right.
because that way your body's already full of iodine and your body is less likely to absorb the isotope that is harmful and causing
Oh,
cancer.
interesting.
I think is how it works.
Okay.
Um, like I said, this is coming back from like a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
COVID rabbit hole,
Right.
learning about nuclear reactors. And again, like none of this is coming from, this isn't like Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island where there's a fear of the reactor melting down or a malfunction.
Right.
This was like, we specifically vented, the Air Force conducted a test where they vented it into the atmosphere.
Yep.
And even in 1961, Bailey reports like them having multiple like lambs born with defects, and like their cows are being born with defects. People in the local community in that Mesa Eltopia area, like he had unexplained conditions of like he had a sunken chest and like unexplained paralysis and like spent time in an iron lung.
Right.
Um, and they kind of, he talked about running for office and he was like trying to find older people in the region. He was like, well, there's just not that many old people here.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Um, and so these people have been fighting in court to try and get recognized, and the lawyers that represent the like DuPont are
Mhm.
being compensated by the federal government. So like there's an endless supply of financing
Right.
where the individuals that are running these farms don't have the time or the money to keep
Right.
adjudicating it, and it just keeps kind of getting drug out, drug out, drug out. Um, and I think at best the downwinders in Nevada and Arizona get 25 grand.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, like even if you win,
Yeah. You don't get,
you're not really winning enough.
yeah. Did you see about the lawsuit that was in 2005 from
Yes,
there? The Downwinders? Okay.
yes, it started in 05 and then it goes to 13.
Yeah. So, I mean, you figured that right there is 8 years of fighting. So, 8 years of legal fees and just nuts.
Well, would you figure? Okay, so let's exposures in 49. So you
Yep.
said 05. So you're talking what, that's 56 years after the fact of the exposure. So a
Mhm.
lot of those people, the first generation people have passed
Yeah.
away.
Right.
And they were saying that the rate of thyroid cancer in these regions is, some estimates are like I think 6 to 10 times higher than the average rate of like what occurrence of what thyroid cancer should.
Yeah.
And like they had to take it. There was a study that was done by the government of the Hanford area, and then the people of the region had to actually take it to the CDC and have the CDC like relook at the data at
Mhm.
a later date and time, kind of like post Cold War,
Right.
because like during the Cold War, like everything was about we gotta fight the Russians, we gotta escalate, we gotta be
Right.
more prepared than the Soviet Union. And so a lot of this kind of felt like it just got swept under the rug as a for the greater good of
Right.
America in fighting
Yeah.
the Russians. Where now today it's Hanford is well known, well, not as well known as it should be, I guess,
Yeah.
but it's almost more famous as a one of the biggest nuclear waste site cleanup projects in America.
Yeah.
All of the reactors have been retired
Mhm.
and entombed. So like they've kind of taken like big sheets of like lead and like put it over where the reactors used to be.
Mhm.
But the problem is that this irradiated like sludge and like this water, like some of it's leaking into the groundwater. So some of these people were watering their crops or
With, yeah.
potentially could be watering their crops and drinking water that is irradiated
Yep.
from the improper storage of some of this material where they took like 55-gallon drums, welded them together, and then put concrete around it and hope for the best.
Yeah, and they're
And
they're
go
now
ahead.
now they're leaking, or they
Yeah,
have been leaking. Um, over this time and stuff like that. And so I had one uh that they're basically holding these tanks. So there's 177 tanks is what I have. Is that what you have at
that
Hanford?
sounds right.
Okay, and then there 149 of them are just a single shell tank. So they're just one coating of that. And that's where you hold the nuclear material, like the nuclear waste, yeah, radioactive liquid waste. And they're meant to hold for 20 years. And then some of them were supposed to be moved to the safer double shell tanks. Uh, and two of the tanks were reportedly leaking 300 gallons of radioactive liquid waste per year. And then there are four that were leaking around 15 gallons. And then they announced in 2013, our governor, Jay Inslee, announced that uh, they had been leaking anywhere between 150 to 300 gallons per year. And he said the leak has no threat to health, but that he came back later in February and say, oh, yeah, by the way, six more tanks are leaking this radioactive waste.
Yeah. And a little caveat to go back. In 2000, federal employees that worked and had radiation exposure were getting 150K.
Oh, my God.
So, like when you look at the downwinders are getting 25 in Nevada and Arizona. If you're a federal employee who is exposed to radiation, you get paid 6 times that. And
Yeah.
that's still not enough to really touch if you're
No, what you're
going
going to be
through
dealing with.
cancer treatment, like
Yeah.
that's not going to be enough. But
Drop in the bucket.
when I was at LCC in 2005, I wrote my speech about nuclear waste vitrification at Hanford.
Mhm.
So the cleanup process, which we're still trying to get completely running,
Yeah.
because funding kind of happens and then it stops, and then it happens and it stops. Is you take nuclear waste and you put it in between two big electrodes, and using an immense amount of electricity, you get to arc back and forth. You put a bunch of silica and other stuff in there, and you get it to liquefy, and then eventually it turns into molten glass. And then you take it out, you pour it out, and you let it cool, and then it turns into, because it's got the silica, it
Yeah.
turns into a glass that's inert, which means that the radiation doesn't spread
Right.
from the material. And so, like, I wrote that speech in 2005.
Yeah.
We're 20 years beyond that, and we're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
kind of, sort of, almost getting there.
Yeah.
Like, it probably should be a bigger priority on our agenda than it is,
You think so?
but because it's kind of tucked away into this randomness, like Eastern Washington has a ton of like kind of military, especially during World War II,
Yeah.
a lot of military stuff happening on Eastern Washington, and like think about where the missile tubes are, like in Wyoming, you
Yeah.
know, like where there's no people, nobody's going to notice that you're out there just building something.
I mean, there's missile tubes in Royal City, right? Moses Lake had them. Like Eastern Washington was the place, and it was the perfect place because really, like nobody would look. So
Yeah. But I mean, in hindsight, I guess it's unfortunate. So like when you type in, you try and look up downwinders, a lot of research is going to point you towards um, Nevada and Arizona. EWU, who I'm teaching my course through, but there was results that came up um, that talked about different aspects of it. So some historians at Eastern have been doing some work trying to help these guys get recognized. And it's really just kind of like one of those secrets that it happened, and like we don't understand. Like a lot of times, being a newer state in the union, we're kind of like, why are we important?
yeah,
Um, and I guess like, here we're kind of important for the wrong reason.
yeah,
And I mean, it's kind of crazy to me because like those first scientists who figured out like how to make this reaction, like They figured that out in like 43,
Right.
42,
And
43,
then
and then
immediately
immediately went
started.
into, hey, let's build these reactors. And again, the reactors aren't designed to make electricity, make steam,
Yeah.
and make power.
Yeah.
They're designed simply as
Yep.
enriching materials.
Yep.
And so with the in reactor, where we did do kind of both, it has led to some training that is going on where we can kind of, like with Iran or Russia,
Mhm.
teach them how to take those weapons producing reactors and turn them into power producing reactors.
Right.
So a
So
little bit of sunshine in an otherwise
gloomy episode.
green glowy episode.
Yep.
So Cesar, thanks for
Thank
taking
you.
an interest. I learned some more about this. I didn't realize how big it was. I didn't realize it was half the size of Rhode Island, but
Right. Like that amount of area.
it's wild.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also we recycle power plants from naval vessels there,
Hmm.
nuclear naval, like power plants.
Yeah, nuclear. Yeah, nuclear naval missiles, not just so. But we're looking at 1 minute left, Barker, less than a minute.
Yes,
So we'll make this quick. I think, Barker, I think it's official. That's a wrap for season 11. Or do you got
I
one
think
more?
so. Yep. Or
Okay,
yeah,
let's call it a
season
wrap.
7.
Season 7, thank you. Episode 11.
Yes.
So that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for following along this season. We're going to take our summer hiatus, but we should be back in the fall, rip raring to go. So until next time, I'm the Turn,
I'm the Bart.
and we're going to be here a long time. Have a good night, everybody,
Be safe.
and be well. Enjoy your summer.